Today, I want to talk about something very special to me, and that is the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Over the years, I've gotten kind of a decent little collection of different Pet Sounds albums and things, and figured it'd just be fun to share because this really is the one album that I collect. I make a point pretty hard with myself not to collect just for the sake of collecting, but for my favorite album, I broke my own rule. I've always just adored this album since the first time I heard it. And I talk about that in some other videos. But let's go ahead and just jump into what I have. So up first, this is an original Capitol pressing from '66. And this is really special. It's not great sounding. The original Capitol pressings are actually pretty bad sounding, in my opinion. But this is the album that got me into Pet Sounds, this exact album. When I had a record store, the founder of it gave me this album before I was even a co-owner or manager. He just said, you know, you buy enough in here, I have this copy, you should take it home and check it out. I think you'd like it. It was the Beach Boys. I wasn't into the Beach Boys then. I was into the Beatles. I didn't get the Beach Boys, really. Took it home, though. Sat on it for a few days. Blew my mind. I was hooked right out of the gate. First time I listened to it, just so beautiful. Yeah, unbelievably good album. Up next, I do have this Record Store Day. I believe this was from this year, 2024. Record Store Day version. It's okay. The jacket itself is pretty low quality in my opinion. Definitely one of the worst out of the bunch that I have. Not a lot of sheen or gloss to it. It does have that cool coke colored semi-transparent green vinyl, so that's nice. But at the end of the day, I picked it up because it was my favorite album. I also love Record Store Day ever since having a record store. I mean, it was a big day for the shop every year that they started doing it. So yeah, for 20 bucks, I wasn't gonna not pick it up. And so I got it, and it's in stereo, which is my preferred method of listening to Pet Sounds. I prefer stereo over mono. We'll get to that with some future albums that I'll show you a little bit more in detail. So anyway, up next, we have, I don't know what edition this is. This is the Splatter edition from the Beach Boys website. That's where I got it from, just directly from the Beach Boys. A very, very pleasant surprise in my opinion. It's a stereo version. The jacket is really nice quality, high sheen, glossy finish, individually stamped on the back. I don't know who exactly did the pressing of this, but it does sound really good. It's right on up there with one of the better pressings that I have. And so if you're looking for an affordable, decent sounding, you know, above average sounding copy of the album, currently, I think they still sell this one. This is the one that I would pick up, honestly, and it's fun. Like I've said before, I don't really care about colored vinyl. This is the only album anywhere out of all my collection that I've bought because it was a colored vinyl. Again, I collect Pet Sounds stuff. I just wanted it, got it, but I was very pleasantly surprised. It sounds great, and the jacket is also very high quality. Overall, very good purchase. Happy I got it. Up next is the 50th anniversary mono edition. So this is kind of like the same jacket as the Record Store Day one. Pretty low quality, not really a high gloss, not very thick cardboard. Again, I don't even prefer the mono over the stereo, so I don't really listen to this one much. I did want a one disc mono version of the album though. And so I picked it up, and it's still good to listen. I do think the bass in particular, bass is, because, you know, it's Pet Sounds. There's more than one bass. There's an upright and an electric on basically every track, I believe. And the bass sounds great on the mono mix. So it's worth having the mono mix still, in my opinion. Okay, next up, we have my main listening copy. This is the Analog Productions 33 single disc version. You can get it off of Acoustic Sounds if you're in the US. Amazing sounding record. This is, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best sounding version of Pet Sounds you can get. Highly, highly recommended. It is a bit steep. I think they're like $60. Nevertheless, phenomenal sounding record, and also the highest quality packaging out of any of these records that I have. Really nice, extremely high gloss, very thick cardboard. It just feels like a very nice deluxe product, and it has the sound to back up that feeling as well. So yeah, this is the main one I listen to out of all of these. Love this pressing. But I'm not done with Analog Productions because they are fantastic. So this is my stereo 45 copy of the album, and it does edge out the 33 and sound a little bit better. The noise, there's a little bit less noise, but you really have to actively listen pretty dang hard. And I'm using a pretty decent set of cans and headphone amp when I listen to that, and I can tell the differences. Overall, it's great. The gatefold is also really nice. It's really well done. I love just having a gatefold of Pet Sounds because obviously it didn't originally have one. So it's cool, still very high quality jacket and sleeves, everything. Best sounding copy of Pet Sounds in my opinion that there is. If you really want to dig into it, this is the one. Nothing that I'm going to bring up sounds better than this in my opinion. I don't always like the two flips and the disc change. When I started listening to Pet Sounds, it was obviously just a single record. I got really used to A side, B side, and that's why I still stick with the 33 version as well. It sounds almost as good, and it's just got the flow that I'm used to of playing a side, flipping it, hearing the last side. So, I don't always listen to it, but it's great to have because it is the best sounding one in my opinion. So speaking of Analog Productions, I'm still not done. This is the mono version. You can see it's missing the stereo label right here that the other one had. So the mono version, same story. It sounds leagues better than that 50th anniversary mono edition in my opinion. This is the one where you can really hear the bass. There's certain drum parts that I think sound a lot better in mono as well. Excellent listening experience if you enjoy the mono pressing. The one Analog Productions out of the 4 they have of Pet Sounds is the 33 version of the mono. That just seems like overkill since I don't prefer the mono. I don't want to just spend $60 on something I'm not going to listen to that much. I'm not trying to be that collector. Everything I have here has some purpose. At least that's my intention. So yeah, amazing sounding record though, especially if you want mono. This is the one you want, or the other Analog Productions single disc 33. Okay, now we're getting into something a little more fun, I guess, and that is the Bullion Presents the Beach Boys versus Jay Dilla. Pet Sounds in the Key of D. I love this thing. I've heard some people on forums and stuff complaining about it. It's a mashup. I don't know what they're expecting. And as far as mashups go, this one is great. It's a fantastic re-envisioning of a fantastic album. I'm a huge fan of the album, and I love what they did here. It's unique. It's different. It's a new way to hear the album, and it kind of emphasizes certain parts, certain lines, certain compositional themes of songs that maybe you wouldn't concentrate on otherwise. So really fun record. Glad that I picked it up. Up next, we have the Pet Sounds Vocals Only. As far as I can tell, this is just a straight bootleg rip of the Vocals Only Vocal Stack CD from the Pet Sound Sessions. So nothing new here. We're not breaking new ground. It's just fun to have. And this is probably one of the few albums where the Vocals Only is worth a listen. I would still just say get the Pet Sounds Sessions box, but if you don't have a CD player, this is great. I think you can still find them for like 40, 50 bucks somewhere. Yeah, fun little album to have in the collection. Kind of tied to that is this Sub Pop 45. I Just Wasn't Made for These Times stereo mix. It also has Wouldn't It Be Nice Vocals Only, and Here Today, the stereo backing track. So usually I just keep these together in the same sleeve because it's kind of the same thing. The 45 is really just kind of a taste of the Pet Sound Sessions. I think it came out in like 99. Yeah, so fun little 45 to have around. Just a cool little thing. The last vinyl record to talk about that I have is the Beach Boys Deluxe box set. This is in stereo. This has 3 albums in the box. It has the Beach Boys Today, Summer Days, and Summer Nights, and Pet Sounds, all in their entirety. I picked this whole thing up for 30 bucks, so that's 10 bucks a record. Great deal. The copy in here does not sound that good. It's fine, but it's not one of the better sounding versions in my opinion. Still, if you see this thing when you're out, there's 3 really solid Beach Boys albums. So I can't recommend this enough. For the price that you can get these at, it's excellent. Notable mentions that I'm missing, the Carl and the Passions version, which is also the same version that's in the brown cover that you might see of Pet Sounds. I've had that. I've had the Carl and the Passions. I haven't had the brown cover. I gave it away to a friend because that was like my extra copy, and I'm not in love with the Carl and the Passions cover, so that was the one I gave away, and I just wanted them to have something that sounded good. So that's something that I definitely know I'm missing. I'd love to get the version with the brown cover eventually if I just see one when I'm out. I'm not going to go online and just buy it on Discogs. I'd like to find it in person. Yeah, so anyway, up next, the essential thing that any Pet Sounds lover should have, and that is the Pet Sound Sessions box set. This might be one of the best box sets of all time. I love this thing. It has so much in it. You have tons of interesting sessions where you can hear highlights and Brian talking and directing members of the Wrecking Crew, which is really awesome. You can see kind of not only how these songs came together, but just how Brian has such attention to detail when crafting these songs. It's unbelievable. I love just having this on in the background. I don't really sit around and actively listen to it all that much, but I have it on literally all the time, just in the background. Kind of the same way when I'm in my studio room, I'll play the Beatles anthology VHSs in there, just constantly when I'm not recording. It's just a comforting thing. I love it. This is kind of the same, but this has the full stereo mix on disc 1 with a bunch of the sessions. Disc number 2 is a ton more of the sessions, stereo backing track, highlights from the tracking date, things like that. Disc number 3, the stack of vocals, which is kind of the Pet Sounds Vocals Only. And then it also has alternate versions of almost every song. And then the bonus disc is the remastered original mono mix, which, yeah, is in its own little sleeve. That's what that disc is. Just overall excellent, especially with the supplementary data that's in the books. Both little booklets are totally worth reading for any fan. So speaking of books, there's 2 main books that I have, and the first one was this Pet Sounds, the greatest album of the 20th century. And this is a really interesting book because of all the It's got a lot of interesting pictures, but it also talks about things like it has a whole chapter on the Pet Sounds Sessions box set, which is really interesting. That it already mentions that there's sections in here about, there's sections where it's telling who was on the recording sessions for each song, which is something I went to school for audio engineering and I'm really into that kind of thing. So yeah, I love that. Lots of good data, and at the end, it's not just interviews and stuff. There's actually just a lot of data in this one. The next one that I have is Wouldn't It Be Nice? The Making of Pet Sounds. I think the highlight of this book, there's not a ton of new stuff in this that's not in the other books, but there's some interesting parts. There's still a whole section about the Pet Sounds box. There's also some good interviews with Brian in here. Some Mike Love, whatever. And I guess for interviews, it's more of clips from Brian. I think he actually says, I know in one of these books, he mentioned that he intentionally didn't interview Brian. I believe that's this one, actually. The other one has a little bit more from Brian. So anyway, again, it's like $16. Totally worth reading. If you're a fan of kind of the history of Pet Sounds. A really interesting one, though, that's worth a read is the 33 1/3 series. These are like $10. This is a really condensed version of kind of all the other material. It goes over each song. You can read this easily in a day. And this is definitely, out of the 33 1/3 series, one of the more just kind of data-driven, like diving into the creation of the album. Not a lot of personal anecdotes or anything from the author himself, Jim Fusilli. Love this series. Great little read. If you don't want to read a huge book on Pet Sounds, but you love the album, I'd check that out. Along with the series in general. They probably have some album that you love or multiples. And yeah, it's a great series. So DVDs, up next, I guess. I have the Live in London DVD. This was a good concert. I like this. It's not my favorite. I don't watch it all the time. It's really fun to see Brian enjoying himself in this, and that's kind of why I keep this around. It did seem like he was having a fun night, but I mean, you can't beat the album, in my opinion. So. And I just don't watch DVDs all that much. I also have the classic albums Pet Sounds DVD. This is pretty good. I wouldn't call it a deep dive. It's very surfacey, just kind of a fun overview of it with some interviews from the band, I guess. I like that they include the Wrecking Crew in that, and they do interviews with the Wrecking Crew. That's the most interesting part to me, by far. So the Beach Boys 40th anniversary CD. This also has just the mono stereo mix on one CD along with a DVD with some interesting interviews as well. Yeah, you can get these for so cheap. So I got it just for the DVD to check out, which it's okay. Again, it's not really a deep dive. You really have to hit the books if you want to get a deep dive. There's not a great documentary on it. This is the next one up. This is just kind of a modern, I think this is the 50th anniversary CD, which has Pet Sounds in mono and stereo on the first disc. The second disc is a full instrumental album and then live recordings. This is kind of the one that will stick around in my car with me. I live somewhere where you can't get internet very often on the road, so I have to listen to CDs or things I have downloaded on my phone. This is my car playing copy. Sounds fine. The last CD I think I have, is the Analog Productions Super Audio CD. I actually have I randomly do have a Super Audio CD player. This sounds great. This is also one of the better sounding versions of Pet Sounds that I think you can have. This is just in stereo. My version, by the way, does not include the mono in stereo. This is just stereo. Yeah, easily the best sounding of all the CDs that I have. Which, yeah, you can still pick those up on Analog Productions. I mean, Acoustic Sounds, I believe. Almost to the end, I have this 7.5 inch per second reel-to-reel. I have an Akai M8 that I usually do my listening on. That was one of the last tube, or the last tube, transistor-based Akai reel-to-reel. So it really colors the sound. And it's just a different experience altogether. This is definitely not the original. This is a copy or a dub somebody's made. Sounds fine. Again, with the M8, it's going to color the sound so much that I didn't really see any point in shelling out for an original. I did want to be able to play it on the reel, though. I have a decent reel collection. But it's a very colored listen. So sounds great. It's really fun to listen to. It's just a totally different experience than listening to it on vinyl or cassette, which I also have. This is one of my first copies as well. This was a utilitarian purchase. I had a truck for a long time that was just cassettes, and I picked up this because I wanted to listen to it. And I've probably listened to this copy of Pet Sounds more than any other copy, just because it would sit in my car and it just lived there. I'd turn it on and it would play, finish, turn the, start side one again over and over and over. I've listened to this like 1,000 times minimum, probably many thousands of times. Sounds kind of like shit. It's a mono copy. Yeah, not great sounding. Definitely not now. I have worn this thing down to nothing, but also my most played, so one of my more sentimentals versions of the album. And that is it. We got through all my Pet Sounds stuff. There's nothing I can say about the album that hasn't been said already. Truly just one of the greatest recordings that I can think of. Yeah, Brian in the studio and the way he mixed instruments together and the way he utilized the Wrecking Crew and their abilities just culminated to create this nearly perfect album. And I love it. I just love it. It's just a part of me at this point. So yeah, that's my collection. If there's anything else that you think I'm missing, let me know. I know I'm missing the 50th anniversary box set too. I wasn't in a place to buy it when it came out, and now it's too expensive. I can't justify spending that money on that for not enough new stuff. But other than that and the, Carl and the Passions, or the one with the brown cover, that was from the 70s. I think it was like 72 or something. Yeah, if there's some copy I'm missing, definitely let me know. And yeah, tell me what you think. See you next time.